Welcome back, Madridistas. I want to give you my thoughts on the Leipzig Real Madrid match the other day. An incredibly difficult match. I think a match we could have very, very easily lost, but managed to come away with a very, very favorable score thanks to an incredible goal by Brahim, a real emerging talent. Very difficult match. Again, the best thing coming out of this match is the score, but I want to give you my thoughts because I think there's some interesting takeaways here. Let's get started. Okay, welcome back, Madridistas. Let's talk about the Leipzig match and some important takeaways. We need to talk about the match. We need to talk about Lunin, Brahim, Tchouaméni, and there are a couple of little snippets about Modric and Rodrigo that I'd like to share as well. Okay, let's talk about the match. First of all, by the way, sorry that this video came out so late. We had a couple of technical issues, but these will be coming out much more quickly after the matches. But let's get started. Okay, this was the typical away-from-home Champions League match. Very, very difficult. The other team playing with incredible intensity. This is especially the case with German opposition. I think historically we've struggled against German sides, but again, this was a match of two halves. I think the period before the Brahim goal and then the period after. So in the first part of the match, extremely difficult. Leipzig was pressing very, very hard. We were completely unable to retain the ball for any duration. I think our possessions were probably the shortest all year. Again, losing the ball all over the pitch. Even Toni Kroos, a player that it's very rare to see him lose a ball ever, but even he was losing balls, I think, more than the rest of the season combined. So very, very difficult. And in the meantime, Leipzig was finding plenty of space. They were getting balls down the wing. They were getting balls in the box. I think if they had a bit more fortune or a bit more quality in the last third, this game could have gone a very different way. So, hats off to Leipzig because, this is a very good side with a lot of physicality that always makes us very uncomfortable. But then the Brahim goal sort of changed everything. I think at that point, Leipzig had to come forward. They became a little bit less organized. And in the chaos, I think Madrid's quality tends to come out. So we started to hold the ball longer, thread more passes, and even created a couple of other opportunities. Vinny had an excellent opportunity that nearly went in, but I think overall the best thing coming out of this match, I think, is the result, because it's a very favorable result, coming back to the Bernabeu. But again, an extremely difficult match that I think, in fairness, we were quite lucky to get away with a victory. Okay, so the takeaways here are, let's talk about Lunin first. This was an absolutely outstanding performance. This was a world-class performance, not just in the air, the low balls. He did everything perfectly. I think a total of 9 saves, which is the same as Courtois in the Paris final. This was truly an incredible performance. Now, I had been in other videos critical of Lunin because he had a couple of poor performances in the past, but I think a lot of this had to do with Ancelotti switching between him and Kepa, because players on the pitch need continuity primarily for their physical conditioning. I think goalkeepers need continuity for their psychological condition, because if you're a goalkeeper, you need confidence. You need to feel very confident in the decisions you make. You need to be aggressive and assertive. And it's very difficult to play a game if you think that you make one mistake and you're not going to play the next match. So I think it was a mistake for Ancelotti to keep switching between the two. I think he's finally decided to stay with Lunin, which I think is a very good decision because I think he is a better keeper. But he put in a fantastic performance, and I think now that he has that kind of continuity, I think we'll see more of him, and I think much better performances. Okay, let's talk about Brahim. Now, he's been getting more time lately. This player is really starting to impress us. I mean, every time he's come on in the last few matches, he's always done just magical things. He's scoring, he's dribbling, he's creating opportunities. This is a really excellent player. I don't think that any of us really expected Brahim to be this good. I think in terms of his player development, I think it was very, very helpful that he spent the time he did at AC Milan, because the Serie A is a very, very physical league. Defenders are very big, very aggressive. and especially a player with his characteristics, I think it really helped him develop the physical aspect of his game and be able to tolerate the kind of physical pressure around him. So very, very good performance. And first half was kind of muted, but then out of absolutely nowhere, he produces a magical goal. I mean, if you notice when Brahim receives the ball, he had no business scoring this goal. It was kind of an innocuous position on the pitch. It wasn't a particularly threatening place. There were 3 defenders between him and the goal. He really generated this out of absolutely nowhere. Cutting to the inside, holding the ball just long enough to wait for the space, and then putting out an absolutely perfectly placed ball. It was very Messi-esque in many ways, sort of coming in the left and cutting inside and then putting in a curler in the far post. Incredible goal. We're going to be seeing Brahim a lot more because I think he really is proving that he can play in the starting 11 of this team. So incredible performance by Brahim. I have to mention that. Okay, let's talk about Tchouaméni. Now, Tchouaméni doesn't like to play center back. He's sort of joked about this in the past. He's a defensive midfielder, etc. And even Ancelotti in the press conference, was joking about this. But he's doing such an amazing job. I think he's a victim of his own success because, if you look at, he won 100% of the aerial battles. He won 80% of the duels on the ground. He was so strong, so physical, such a great, this with, I think, another maybe not so powerful presence in that position, the game could have gone a different way. So don't be surprised to see more of Tchouaméni playing in this position. Again, it's not something that he enjoys, but if you do it this well, you're going to be called upon to do it. So I expect him to continue to play this position until Rudiger gets back, and maybe even beyond that. So anyway, great performance by Tchouaméni, had to be mentioned. Now, a couple of small things I need to mention about Modric and Rodrigo. Okay, Modric, as we all know, is just a legend at this club and a legend of world football. One of the greatest midfielders the sport has ever seen. But I think it is very telling that in this match, with all the injuries that we have and all the changes that Ancelotti made, he didn't give Luka a single minute. And I think it is a little bit telling. I mean, look, Modric, who has been the best of the best and won everything for us, who was loved and adored in this city, but he is 38 years old. And looking forward, Real Madrid has a policy that after a certain age, I think it's 32 or something, they only offer 1-year renewals to players. So you play 1 year, and then if both sides want it, you get another year. So Luka Modric renewed. He would technically be up for a 1-year renewal at the end of the season. But if you read between the lines, all things considered, that is looking increasingly unlikely. And don't forget, he's going to be 39. I mean, it's already ridiculous that he can play at this level at the age of 38. So I just wanted to mention that observation about Luka. And just one final one about Rodrigo. Now, Rodrigo's a wonderful, wonderful player and capable of changing a game in a minute. And the 2 goals he scored against Man City in the semifinal of the Champions League 2 years ago, I mean, that alone would warrant a statue in the middle of Madrid. This is a player who's phenomenal and he's loved, but he is a little bit intermittent, and I think this is kind of a glaring observation for those of us that watch the games. I mean, he can play very, very well in certain, but there are also very long periods of matches where he kind of disappears, and this is becoming increasingly noticeable. So I just think going forward that now I think that Brahim and Rodrigo will play together just because of all the injuries. I mean, Jude is still out with an ankle sprain. He's not going to be back for another 3 weeks or so. But so they may play together now. But I think going forward, the decision between Rodrigo and Brahim is going to become increasingly difficult for Ancelotti. So I just want to mention that because it is a slight concern that we're starting to observe. Okay, and finally, just one thing to add, and you have the calendar of upcoming matches here. There are no matches until Sunday. We play away against Rayo Vallecano, a team that gave us a very, very hard time at home earlier in the year. So if anything newsworthy comes up, I'll obviously pass it on. Otherwise, I'll give you guys a preview of that match just ahead of that match. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in the next video.